then I can eat. I can eat clean. I can eat amazing food and still not necessarily be malnourished, but not be able to have my body absorb all of the nutrients at an optimal level.
That is highly uncommon. Majority of the women that I work with, they don't burp even after 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. And it's much more frequently that women have suppressed levels of stomach acid. So right there off the bat, we know that that person's health is going to be suboptimal because it's having a hard time even breaking down the foods that they're eating. One of the things we talk about is the importance of having strong digestion, your ability to break down food so that your cells can actually get the nutrients and the amino acids from the foods that you eat.
Up to maybe 3 minutes is good.
Good.
Yes,
Before you want to eat,
over, not so good.
and that's why so many women that I work with, many of them are thoughtful.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Travel and Transformation Show with me, your host, Sophia. And my guest today is Amanda Hinman. Now, this is a part 2, but if you didn't listen to part 1 yet, let me just go ahead and reintroduce her. She is a functional medicine health coach and best-selling author. Amanda Hinman specializes in helping successful women between the ages of 40 to 60 who are struggling with hormone, mood, and gut imbalance to heal naturally and gain 3 hours of energy daily so they feel fantastic. And I had to stop there the last time too, because I was like, oh my God, 3 hours? Okay, we got to talk about that. Even though we probably talked about it last time, we're going to hit it again today.
Yeah.
Amanda is the founder of Thyroid and Hormone Solution Program, which has helped hundreds of women beat Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, insulin resistance, anxiety, hypertension, brain fog, weight gain, and more. Wow, that is there's so much in there because I've heard so much about insulin resistance and a lot of anxiety kicking in around perimenopause, um, brain fog, weight gain. Welcome back because we have a lot to cover.
Yes, thank you, Sophia. I'm glad to continue this conversation with you.
So one of the things I want to bring up first, and if you guys haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1. Some of this might be a little bit of a repeat, kind of depends on how our conversation goes. But the one thing I wanted to bring up was something that Amanda talked about, kind of to do a little test for your gut acid, if I'm getting that right.
Yes. So this is to help. One of the things we talk about is the importance of having strong digestion, your ability to break down food so that your cells can actually get the nutrients and the amino acids from the foods that you eat. So the test that you did was the baking soda test, which signals if you have adequate hydrochloric acid or stomach acid, which is necessary to start that breaking down digestive process.
Okay, so I did it. And so it was like, I think it was a minute up to maybe 3 minutes is good.
Good. Yes, before you want to eat,
Over, not so good. So I did it and I was under a minute. And can I just tell you, I felt like I was back in school and I got an A.
you're like, oh, good sign. Yes. I love that, Sophia. Well, and it's really, I want to acknowledge you because, first of all, for anyone who's listening and goes back to listen to part 1 and you complete the baking soda test, as I mentioned, to do it first thing in the morning before you eat or drink anything else, that is highly uncommon. Majority of the women that I work with, they don't burp even after 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. And it's much more frequently that women have suppressed levels of stomach acid. So right there off the bat, we know that that person's gut health is going to be suboptimal because it's having a hard time even breaking down the foods that they're eating. So that's really impressive. That's really a great, like support for your body's health that you do have good digestion.
Yeah, yes. Well, and
Yes.
it's really interesting because like I like to experiment with stuff and because you said try it, I was like, can't hurt. But at the same time, I'm like, it can only help because if I find out that, I'm not at, I am at suboptimal levels, now it's let me go get help to figure out how we can adjust it. Because if I'm understanding all of this correctly, if it's not adjusted, then I can eat. I can eat clean. I can eat amazing food and still not necessarily be malnourished, but not be able to have my body absorb all of the nutrients at an optimal level. Is that correct?
Correct. And that's why so many women that I work with, many of them are thoughtful. Like it's not like they're eating McDonald's cheeseburgers every day for lunch. And then they're like, huh, I wonder why I don't have energy or why I feel like I have, insomnia and weight gain. No, it's not that. It's not for lack of effort. It's actually, it's a different mechanism. Their body isn't able to receive the full value of the nutrients that they're taking in from their clean diet or from their food, right? A lot of people eat fairly well for the most part. They eat protein, they have, some healthy salads and vegetables, or they're mindful of their choices, and yet that's why they're even more frustrated. That's why we talked about a little bit about why bother syndrome, because it's kind of like, oh, what the heck? Even when I try and eat well, I still feel pretty crappy. Part of it could be because your body's not able to extract the nutrients and the fuel that it needs well and use it. So yes, you hit the nail on the head, and this is a really awesome opportunity for people who do discover, oh, actually, maybe my digestion can use a little bit of support.
I had a whole other thought, but let's go into that for just a second because if your digestion does need support, what are some of the things that you would recommend? Let's say I came in and I was after the 3-minute mark. What might you
Mhm.
recommend for me to optimize my um hyd what is it, hydrochloric acid intake?
You got it. You got it. Hydrochloric acid. Yeah. Well, let's start with a very simple basic that's available to all of your listeners for free. And it can start with simple practices, eating hygiene. Eating hygiene is one of the things that um, I educate all of my clients about. We have like routines and rhythms for, because eating hygiene is how you are eating your food, which can become just, if not even more important than what foods you are eating. We talked about this a little bit before, but the simple practice of stepping away from other activities, especially if it's like work or a stressful conversation, or even just sometimes watching TV. Believe it or not, even watching like a thriller movie or horror thing can activate the stress response in your body.
Mm.
And anytime your body goes into that fight or flight stress response on purpose, like nothing has gone wrong, it's going to dial down digestive capacity, because it's saying, this is not top priority. Our top priority right now is to save your life, not break down and adequately digest and absorb your nutrients. So it deprioritizes digestion when the body signals stress response. And stress response can look like, like I said, as simple as watching a scary movie. Even though you may feel like you're relaxed and you're just sitting on the couch,
Right.
neurologically, your body is perceiving fear and stress. Stress response can look like an argument with a child or a coworker or something where you're just frustrated. Stress response can look like continuous information overload. If you have, if you're at work and you have so many things you're trying to juggle and bounce back and forth and manage, and then you're trying to eat your lunch on the side, that's that's not going to be digested effectively, right?
Mm.
So a huge part of how you're eating and taking a practice of like stepping away, just taking a few deep breaths, a few slow deep breaths to kind of get centered, get grounded. Maybe even one of the little things I like to do, that sounds cheesy, but like wiggle in your chair until you can feel your sit bones on the on the chair. This actually gets you into your body instead of in your head. Like we want to be out of our head when we are eating. We want to be in our body, right? So breathing and noticing your chest rising and falling a few times, or wiggling your tailbone and noticing your sit bones touching the chair. That gets your conscious, your awareness in your body, and then start to eat your food. And just slowing down, chewing, 10 to ideally 15 to 20 chews per bite, per swallow, is going to change the consistency of the food and change your ability to then continue to break it down. So that's the free, anyone can do it. It's just a matter of putting the routine and the practice into place.
Right.
Some of the other things that we talk about, if necessary, with clients is adding in like probiotic foods. Probiotics can help to restore your gut balance. That can aid with digestive secretions. It could even be sometimes supplementation with hydrochloric acid if necessary, where if your body for long enough has been in that fight or flight and can't produce it, then we can supplement for a period of time to kind of get that kicked back into gear. So there are other tools necessary, but free is eating hygiene, getting into your body, slowing down, chewing appropriately, and not being distracted while you're eating.
Okay, so one of the things that we did say we were going to talk about in this session, part 2, is the neuroscience behind people falling off their New Year's resolutions, because this is, I think, around the time when they start to fall if they haven't fallen
Yes.
already.
Yes. I think one of the statistics I read was 86% of people by January 21st, which happens to be my birthday, 3 weeks after the new year, the resolution has gone out the window, right? And that's kind of frustrating. It's disheartening for a lot of us, but it's interesting because there's a neurological reason why. We have pathways of patterns built into our brain. Like our nervous system is built on habits. It's built on programs and habits. And anytime, this is what's interesting, anytime we're thinking about our to-do list, work, like I said, a conversation that we're replaying, something that we're worried about coming up in the future, something that we're frustrated or worried about that happened in our past, anytime we're in our head thinking, that means your body is running on programs. So it's running on the old programs. So we have, what I mean by programs is the habits and the patterns, the routines that you have been living with for the past however many years. So if your routine is to eat at your desk or skip lunch altogether, or if your routine is to say, you know what, not build in a walk outside every day, or if your routine is to, work up until you have to go to bed and not have like adequate wind down time. So it's hard to fall asleep and get restful, restorative sleep, whatever it is, like whatever the routine is, when we're in our head thinking, then the body is running on the patterns and the routines that you've established from the past. So what does that mean? When we're not present, when we're not consciously like tuned in and actually like open and just in our body, we're running on our old programs. So if our old programs are not supportive of our New Year's resolutions, we have no chance of hitting those resolutions if we don't change the programs. Right? So we have to change the programs, which is a much deeper layer than just taking new action. That's what a lot of people do. They jump into action. They're like, okay, I'm going to start to exercise this year. I'm going to buy new running shoes and I'm going to make sure I exercise 3 times a week. So they do all the actions and they think that that's going to keep going. But if you never change the program, eventually you're going to be in your head thinking in your life, which means you're going to go back to the old programs.
Right. It almost sounds like you have to take on the identity of the person who. So if your New Year's resolution, like you said, is to start exercising, then you you look at, okay, what are maybe some of the habits of people who exercise on a regular basis? And then start small. Because I know for me, I walk almost every day. Some weeks it's every single day. Other weeks it's maybe 3 or 4 times, depending on, meetings, how I'm feeling, whatever. And sometimes just, like you said, got to get out of my head. But one of the habits that I have started is I have certain clothes that I wear when I walk. I have certain
Mhm.
shoes that I wear when I walk. So it's like I'm telling myself when I put that stuff on, it's like,
Yeah.
it's time to go for a walk.
Yes.
And it helps because I'm like, even if I kind of get distracted, it's like, oh, I'm wearing my walking clothes. It's like,
Walking clothes.
I should go for a
Totally.
walk.
Absolutely. I love that you do that, Sophia, because in some of the work that I do, that we help you to identify your new identity, the identity of the person who has the patterns and the programs for the behaviors and the choices and the thoughts that you want to be living, right? And one of them is your attire. Exactly. How you dress, your dress is a very strong cue for your body's actions. So I love that I've identified running, your shoes for walking, your clothes. You've identified some of the habits, some of the routines, the actions, the behaviors. Another huge part of this, because what drives our physiology at the top of the funnel, the most important priority, if we think about it's called an HPATG axis of connection for hormones. What do I mean by that? H is the hypothalamus, is located in your brain. That is the top of the funnel. Your brain in the hypothalamus is where your thoughts, your beliefs, and your expectations come from. Then it goes to the pituitary. The pituitary, also located in the brain, is really what's kind of assessing the internal environment. Okay, like what is our hunger cues? Do we have our temperature regulated? Do we need some more like output of these hormones and insulin? Like your pituitary is kind of what's taking guard and checking in on all the different systems in the body and signaling appropriately. That goes down to the adrenals, which then regulate stress and immunity. So, like, holy cow, are we stressed out and overwhelmed? We have to be prepared to fight or flee? Or are we relaxed and calm and digested and healing, right? And then it goes to the thyroid, which is our metabolic center, regulating our ability to use energy and gain those 3 extra hours of energy every day. And then eventually the gonads, the ovaries for women, and that's your sex hormones. But at the top of that funnel is the hypothalamus. So when we think about creating a new identity and clarifying the identity for our New Year's resolutions, a really critical component of that is identifying what are the thoughts, what are the feelings, and what are the beliefs of the version of myself who does practice those habits and those choices and those actions routinely, right? We can't just identify the habits or the actions and not ever address changing the thoughts, the beliefs, and the feelings about the person. Because pretty soon, our old thoughts and feelings and beliefs are going to come up and they're going to sabotage us taking that action that we said we wanted to do.
Okay, so I'm taking notes here because I want to ask the question. If the new identity is someone that you've never been and you're not
Mhm.
sure, then how do you figure out what are the thoughts, the feelings, and the beliefs of that person that you're stepping into?
Great question. I love it. And I read there's actually a piece of this in my book, The Thyroid Hormone Solution. What I do with clients and what has worked really well for women is to look up the ladder. Because sometimes you're right, we've never been in that place. We've never experienced that for ourselves. So we can't look to our own history. Instead, what we can do is look up the ladder to identify. And I usually say start with 3, but if you have access to more, you can pull more. But 3 individuals who currently are exhibiting the type of health that you desire. So maybe, and this is a stretch, oftentimes it's not like, oh, somebody who, yeah, she looks healthy. I usually say, like, stretch yourself. Like, this is going to give you the most useful insight is if you look at, like, maybe it's your 80-year-old grandmother who can still, you know, I don't know, like go for a walk. She walks 2 miles a day and she, has some healthy, whatever it is, like somebody that that has living with the health that you desire. Or maybe it's a fellow entrepreneur, a woman that you see like, holy cow, she has the capacity and the mental stamina to lead 2 companies, to run a team of over 100 people. And I see that she still gets in her yoga practice on Saturday mornings and stuff. Like, I don't know what that looks like for you, depending on where you want to be, but you identify the 3 people that are right now living with the version of health that you are stepping into. And then you observe. And sometimes it's like these people you know personally. Sometimes you may not know them personally. So you get to research and learn about, like, what can I observe about their life? If it's, is it someone who I can see what they're doing in terms of somebody at the gym, the local gym, of how often they're here and what classes they do, or what their routine looks like. Maybe it's somebody, like I said, it's an aunt or somebody that you see that has the longevity that you desire. So it's really about looking up the ladder and observing. We can do our scientific research from success leaves clues.
Right.
So find the patterns of what, and maybe it's having a conversation. And, I noticed that you're just really, really on tap. And this is something that you've always been consistent with. What do you think about when it comes to prioritizing getting out for walks or doing your yoga practice? Like, how do you stay disciplined? How do you stay doing it? What are your thoughts about it? What do you believe? And it'd be interesting. It's always insightful for them to see, holy cow, like, they believe this is a non-negotiable part of their life. They believe that this is the catalyst that's going to allow them to be able to lift a piece of luggage up into the airport when they're 80 years old and be able to travel around the world instead of being stuck on the couch, right? So they're tuned in. They're thinking about maybe things in a new vantage point that I haven't necessarily embraced yet.
And I like that because I was about to say me, I probably just if I know the person or I see the person on a regular basis, I probably just go ask questions because hence I like to interview people. But if you're looking at somebody maybe that you don't know or that is not in your realm, you won't necessarily know how they would feel or what they would believe. But I
Mhm.
think that one of the things you can do is go back to when you were a kid. You used to imagine things all the time. You used to play pretend. I know I did. Like I had tea parties constantly, me and my dolls, and you had a great time, right?
Yeah.
So I think as adults, we forget that piece of when you were a kid. So yes, success leaves clues and you can see what they're doing, but then you can always I say, I wonder what they would be thinking. If it's not somebody you can ask, I wonder what they think when they're doing this. What would I think? Maybe I would think, and you know, just pretend. Or how would I
Absolutely.
feel if I had that kind of health? How would I feel? Like, how would I feel in my body? Not just, yeah, I'd be healthy, but how would I feel? Would I feel sexy? Would I feel confident? Would I feel more self-assured? And I think walk into that. And then what would I believe? Then maybe it would be like, well, I think if I was doing this, I believe that I was totally awesome. I would believe
Yeah.
my body can carry me through 90 years old in great health. So I'm going to do everything I can to get there.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I love that imagination. Add in what would, and I always ask this question too of my guys, if you don't have the access to have a conversation or to firsthand observe, ask yourself, like, what would you have to believe to be true in order to be somebody who shows this way day in and day out? Right. Just posing that question or imagining that you're bringing some really useful and inspiring information for you.
Yes, and I think that's one of the things that we forget. A lot of
Mhm.
times when we ask questions like that, we have to slow down and listen for the answer. And what I also realized is that you never know where your answers are going to come from because when you ask a question like that, your answer could come from a commercial, something you hear on the radio,
Mhm.
some dialogue in a show you're watching, something that somebody randomly says when you're having a conversation and it just makes everything click. But then you just have to be aware. Because I know that's happened to me a lot. Like I've asked a question and then, I'm doing something I hear, it's like, what? It's just like almost like you literally answered my question almost word for word, like I asked it. So
Yeah.
you never know w what your signs are going to be and how your questions are going to be answered. So I think asking good questions is really important. And I love that when you're working with your clients, you feed them good questions.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. It's so, I love that divine synchronicity is what I call it, Sophia, when you're right. It may not be in that exact moment, but later you hear the conversation, you're like, oh, wow, something clicked for you. It's that aha. It's really, I love those moments. It's so fun and joyful to like have it click into place.
Yeah, or just something that seems random. It's not really random, because
Hmm.
I was like, I really want to get into a great yoga practice. And then I find this teaching that is going to have me regularly in a yoga practice. It's like, okay.
Yes, it all
Yeah,
came together.
you heard me and you gave me this opportunity, but it's also when you're ready, you have to be ready to see the opportunity, or you have to be ready to hear the conversation. Because otherwise, if you're not open to it, it's just going to pass you by and it's going to be like, because you're on autopilot already. So it's
Yeah.
just like,
Goes back to if we're thinking in our head thinking the old programs are running, we're gonna miss some of those cues and signs and answers that we've been asking for.
yeah. So talk to me a little bit about insulin resistance and how you can break out of it.
I
Because
love this question.
deal.
It, and it actually ties directly to that 3 hours of extra energy. So it's so fascinating when we think about insulin resistance at its core is a metabolic problem. So metabolism is defined. I mean, people always think of metabolism as like, oh yeah, I want to lose weight. I want to have a faster metabolism or my metabolism has slowed down. Really, metabolism is the process of how well your body can convert food energy into usable human potential energy, or something called shortened ATP, adenosine triphosphate. It's a unit of human energy, something that your cells exchange to do the cellular processes that they're designed to do. And every single cell uses ATP, whether we're talking about a cell in your eye to help you see and focus on whatever's in front of you. Mm-hmm. Or we're talking about a cell in your kidney to help clear and detoxify your urine, right? They all have different jobs, but every cell uses ATP as its energy source. So metabolism is how well can your body take substances that come in through your mouth, food, liquid, supplements, and convert that into usable ATP, essentially. And so when we actually think about health across the spectrum, virtually all chronic disease, whether we're talking about cardiovascular disease, whether we're talking about mental health disorders like anxiety, depression, whether we're talking about insulin resistance, whether we're talking about cancer, Alzheimer's, all of these things, autoimmune, they essentially can be traced way, 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 way back to a metabolic problem.
Mm.
Because somewhere down the road, some cells could not effectively convert food substrate into energy to do the job that they were designed to do. So those cells stopped doing the job that they were designed to do. And that created whatever disease or syndrome or mechanism, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when we think about metabolism and the cellular energy, really what we want to ensure is that not only can our cells receive nutrients from our blood supply. So the first step is what we talked about in episode 1, Sophia, is can your gut and your digestive tract break it down into usable, recognizable pieces and then move it into the blood so that it's floating around and circulating around. And now your cells are like, oh, yeah, now I have easy access to it, to
Right.
vitamin B or, amino acid, taurine or something like that it needs. Um, Now, can that glucose is fuel or fatty acids, fats. Your body can use fat or sugar for fuel. But can that glucose get inside of the cell to be used in the mitochondria to create a unit of ATP? Insulin resistance is essentially when insulin is a hormone, says insulin is normally used as an escort to help shuttle glucose inside the cell membrane so that the mitochondria can then do the conversion into ATP.
Right.
But when our blood is flooded with glucose regularly and frequently, too much, after a while, the receptors on the outside of the cell kind of being like, whoa, 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 we're going to close our doors. We don't want to see any more glucose. We don't want to see you anymore, insulin. So we cannot let you in. We're going to close our doors. I think of it as like locking all the doors and all the windows. Now that glucose and that insulin cannot go into the cell receptor and get inside. Well, what happens now is the inside of the cell needs glucose to run in the mitochondria and create energy, ATP. But the cell on the outside, the membrane, is saying, no, 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 our doors are closed. Now that leaves people with complete exhaustion, fatigue, brain fog. That's when you walk into a room and you can't remember, like, what am I going to get again? It's because that's not the only reason, but that's an example of like the energy conversion. There's not energy inside the cell happening. So metabolism is not happening well because things aren't getting into the cells, right? They're not signaling and getting into the cells. So one of the simple, I'm going to break this down into a super simple way to improve getting not only nutrients, but also fuel in the form of glucose into the inner part of the cell so that it can be converted into a unit of energy. This happens when we move, something that I call consistent muscle contraction movement. We all know exercise is good for us, right? But I don't think people realize the type and the impact of exercise, because going to work or going to walk for 60 minutes once a day in the morning, or even going to the gym for a yoga class or a strength training workout for 60 minutes once a day is beneficial. Absolutely great. However, if that's your activity and then you are sedentary for the other 8 to 10 hours, meaning you're sitting at a desk job, or you are somebody who just doesn't have a lot of mobility built in throughout your day, that is going to have a very different metabolic effect on your cells than somebody who, for example, is like a teacher and is literally with second graders in her class all day long and bending and stretching and getting this kid and then helping this one over here and moving all day long. Or even when they do studies in the places where the blue zones, where the greatest number of centurions, those are people who live to 100 years old, those cities where the greatest number of centurions live have a lifestyle routine that incorporates movement throughout the day, because keeping your insulin receptors open and taking in glucose regularly 24 hours, well, not while you're sleeping, but let's just call it 16 hours a day while you are awake, happens most effectively when your body has been moving. So this looks like taking short little movement breaks built in through your day. There was a study in JAMA that had over 6,000 participants. One group worked out for 60, they walked 60 minutes first thing in the morning and then had a desk job. The next group walked 20 minutes after breakfast, after lunch, after dinner, also 60 minutes throughout the day. Their metabolic and insulin health and blood sugar health was definitely better than the first group. But the group that had the best metabolic health was the group that did 5-minute movement breaks roughly every, or no, actually 2-minute movement breaks. They're short, 2-minute movement breaks roughly every 30 minutes throughout their day. So the lesson here, the learning here is that movement of any kind, and this can even look like if you're sitting at your desk, stopping for 2 minutes to like bend and stretch or lift your knees, squeeze your glutes, like movement, just where your body is moving, squeezing, releasing, that contracts the muscles. That allows the glucose and the insulin to go into the cells instead of just floating around on the outside and the doors being shut, and that charges up your energy.
Wow. So, and my wheels are turning. I'm present and listening, but the wheels are also turning because I know like today I have like a 3-hour meeting
Mhm.
that I'm gonna need to be focused on. But also hearing what you're saying, it's like maybe every 30 minutes I got to turn off my camera and do something because I find it really distracting when people are on a Zoom meeting and like they're walking around, the camera's up here, it's over there, it's doing all the things.
Sure.
I
Yes.
don't do that because I don't like it, so don't do it. But it couldn't hurt though, based on what you're saying, just every now and then turn off the camera and just move and just
Mhm.
do like basic movements like you just did because
Yes.
and okay, so the people listening, you didn't see the basic movements she did, but you can catch us on YouTube, so then you can see her. But the thing is, I think when you hear movement throughout the day, it sounds like it can't possibly be that simple.
That's exactly right. And people overcomplicate it. And this is what I tell the clients all the time. I'll oftentimes I'll have them say, get a desk, a thing where your desk can stand and sit, and just earmark. If you're on Zoom a lot or you have a lot of meetings or whatever, earmark certain meetings a different color. So you're going to raise your desk. And as you're standing, I'm not going to do it right now because my desk will go up. But as you're raising, you can just be standing there like stepping up and down or squeezing your glutes. I mean, it can be very simple once we understand the science around why this is so effective. It absolutely exponentially increases your cells, every single cell's ability to take in fuel, convert it, and use it. So that supercharges your energy, right? You have more energy when you move small little breaks consistently rather than sitting for long periods of time.
Right.
So, yeah, it can be really powerful and it can be much simpler than perhaps it's another statistic was kind of funny. In the United States, I think we have the most gym memberships of any, industrialized country. However, we are also the sickest and the most obese. We spend over 2 times in chronic disease care than the next leading industrialized country. 2 times, yet we have the most gym memberships. So it's not just about go to the gym and work out. That's clearly not a working strategy for us.
I think in that study, they failed to realize that even though we have the most gym memberships, we probably have the most unused gym memberships.
True. I would agree. A lot of people do not use them. That is true.
It's like how often, again, like right now at the beginning of the year, it's like, I'm gonna go to the gym. So you get this gym membership, then you fall off, then you're hot and heavy maybe for a couple of months and you're paying. So you have a subscription that is going out on a monthly basis.
Yep.
And life happens and you don't go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember I had a gym membership when the gym was right beside where I worked. So it was easy. Finish
Mm-hmm.
work, go to the gym. And then they closed that location and they had another location. That location was not on the way to anywhere.
Yes.
So it had to be an intentional, I'm going to get up, I'm going to leave my house, I am going to drive to the gym. And
Definitely. It
I'm
seems.
saying it exactly how it felt. So I had to cancel the membership because I recognized it's like I'm not going.
Yep.
So if something's on the way to somewhere or if it's close
Mm-hmm.
by, it's easier to make it a habit. When it starts to feel like
Absolutely.
work, when it starts to be out of the way, I think that's when it just drops off. Because unless you're like hardcore, you're just not going to do it. So
Agreed.
that would be, my recommendation. If you're going to do something like that, let it be close by or let it be on the way to something. Is it on the way to work? Is it on the way from work? Is it on the way to, I don't know, somewhere you go on a regular basis? Or is it just close by so it's not a big deal?
Yes.
You know?
Habit stacking. Make it easy. Lower the resistance so that, like you said, so it's something that's easier to build in the routine
Yeah.
with something you're already doing or somewhere you're already going to be. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, because I know like traffic, traffic where I live is constant. It is it is a consistent part of life. I can look at, because it happened to me yesterday. I looked at where I was going and how long it was going to take me to get there. I got ready, I left the house, and I'm in the car, and then I see the time is rolling and
Mm.
rolling. Okay, it's getting later and closer to the time that I'm actually supposed to be there. Because I built in buffer time, I built in traffic time, I built in got to find a parking time. But all these things factor into, are you going to do something?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's not something naturally pleasurable to you, you probably won't do it. Because if this wasn't someone I wanted to see yesterday, chances are it wouldn't have happened. So if the gym hasn't become something that is pleasurable to you,
Mm-hmm.
probably not going to do it.
Probably not going to stick with it. I agree. Yes, definitely. That's what we can work on, building in those short movement breaks. So like one of the routines I have, it sounds cheesy, but in my office is in my home and I drink water all day. So I frequently have to use the restroom. I get up and go to the restroom. When I walk back through my office door, there's like, where the door frame is, I close the door, 10 body weight squats, 10 jumping jacks. It's so simple. It literally takes less than 100 seconds, but it's that pattern of I'm getting up anyway. While I'm up, get those muscles moving, you
Right.
know?
And that's such a
Mm.
good idea. And it's so simple. And I really believe that we overcomplicate things so much.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the kitchen, and I'm gonna have to do this today, like when I'm in the kitchen doing something, I could be doing some squats while I'm
Right.
sitting there, or I could hold on to the counter while I'm waiting on the microwave and do some leg lifts and make it easy. But it's just because it's not a habit yet, not really something that I think about all the time, it doesn't get
Hmm.
done. But now that I'm talking about it and I can make intentional movements, I can make it intentional to move more regularly and to make it easy.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
I find that the one of the patterns for improved habit change is obviously we was talking about your why, right? Knowing the why around it. And a lot of times that it comes with maybe a new perspective or new knowledge or new insights, right? So like we just talked about, maybe for how perhaps now you have new knowledge about just how substantial and significant these little decisions and actions are to your energy levels. So it's like, oh wow, I hadn't even considered that before. Just like you said, wasn't a thought that crossed my mind. Now I have that new knowledge. So a more compelling reason why
Mhm.
and specificity. Like if we can break it down and make it simple and make it clear, it's not ambiguous. If you leave this conversation, you're like, oh, I should move more. The brain doesn't know what move more means. But if you're like, every time I'm in the kitchen, I'm going to do 10 leg lifts, the brain knows what that is. And that's easier to make it happen. Right. And then practice. Then it's just like repeating it, repeating it. So then all of a sudden it gets like, that's the new normal.
Right. And I love that, again, it can just be so easy. And something so simple can create so much more energy. Because
Mhm.
again, like I do have a new perspective on it because you know, a lot of times you know what to do, but you just don't do it. But
Mhm.
you don't actually always know the why. And if you're somebody who needs to know why things happen and why it's important, because everybody knows why it's important to exercise, because then you're going to feel better and you'll be healthy. But if you didn't know the why behind moving more often,
Mhm.
that is actually going to help you with the end result that you're looking for. If you Whether your end result is weight loss or your end result is more energy, if you didn't know that why, like you said, now you just learned something new.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, okay. So if I do this, then I can have that.
Yes.
So it's almost like
Yes.
if I have $10, I can go buy this at the store. Just a whole other way of looking at things if you're a shopper. Uh,
Yes.
so if I do 10 leg lifts, I can have a better butt.
Yeah. Yes.
And bonus, I will not fall asleep at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
I will have more energy and more focus. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love this conversation. So, okay, I know you have a workshop coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about the workshop? And I also know that you have a cool test that folks can do, other than the one that you talked about last time.
Last time. Yes. So February 18th is my next workshop. This is a free and virtual workshop for people who are like inspired by this conversation and want to learn. The number one thing that I think stops many women is they don't know where to start. Right? It's like, okay, I know that I want to change my health, or I know I want to improve whether it be your metabolism or your mood or whatever your goals are. It's like, there's so many things. We live in an age of information overload, and I don't know where to start, what to prioritize first. So clarity is key. Clarity, and then the right sequencing, the order of how you do things is what's going to create amplified results. Because if we start to do too many things all at the same time, or things kind of not in the right order, you kind of just tread water, and it seems like a lot of effort for nothing, for no traction. So clarity, you can start with the hormone freedom assessment, and I can share that link with you, Sophia, so you can put it in the show notes. That is something that you can do. It's online. You can take the assessment. It will really help you identify which of these areas is the first priority for you, whether it's something with energy and output, like what energy your body is creating and what you're asking it to do. Is that a mismatch? Is it a matter of stress response? Kind of like I talked before, you're stuck in that fight or flight, so digestion or other things are being affected. Or is it a matter of fueling and digestion? I don't have the right nutrients that my cells need now. So you can help you identify which of those patterns is the top priority to start with. So that's the hormone freedom assessment. My training coming up on February 18th is called Your Body Isn't Broken, It Is Responding. And that's where we help you identify what is it responding to. And again, what is that first domino? What is the most important thing for you to recognize the pattern so you can start to shift and create a change with your health?
Well, that sounds amazing. And they can find, if we go to your website, then we can find not only the assessment, but we can find when closer to time, we can find the information for your workshop too, correct?
Correct. Yes. And you can always connect with me on Instagram, Hinman Amanda at Hinman Amanda. I will be sharing, the links to register for the workshop and things there as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming back. I love this conversation. So now we know where to find you. And I suggest everybody go ahead and take the assessment because it can't hurt to know where you are. Because if you know where you are, then you have a starting point. So
Exactly.
go take the assessment.
Yes. Great.
All right.
Well, Sophia, it was so great to connect with you again.
You too. All right. Till the next time, because who knows, maybe there'll be a part 3.
Bye.
Bye.